Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It depends upon when you're listening. And welcome to The Solution. Nothing changes if we change nothing. Hi, I'm Ronnie Katz, and here's
Chevar C. Francis. One day I'll tell you what the C stands for, everyone. The community development specialist with the Children's, I'm sorry, with the New York City Prevention Resource Center under Children's Aid Society, I can't even get this right. Funded by the OA's Office
sorry,
what is the, oh my God, the Office of Addiction Services and Support.
and supports.
Here we
There you
support
go.
with the
Very
S.
good. And the C doesn't stand for cool.
Well, it should. It will. It does. Now that you say it, it does. Uh, so Riley, so everyone's listening. Yes, I flubbed the giggles. This is the time of the year where I think it's okay you should have the giggles, right? You want to have the giggles, because a lot of the time during this time of the year, we're doing the holiday season, the November, uh, December, January months where people struggle. Even October month to February, people struggle. And it's okay. It's okay to laugh and to giggle and what have you. So I just wanna put that out there prior to us coming on. I made a funny sound and I was stretching my voice and stretching my gums to get myself in a mood of talking and enunciation and pronunciation of my words. I notice as I listen to the podcast, sometimes I mumble my words, sometimes I flub my words, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have to, yeah, have to work on that piece. And that was the sound
All
what I
right.
made. Why I got to kick out of that.
Well, we both started to giggle, but that's okay. I think we need those light moods all the time. It's like if you don't have comic relief, life can be awfully hard to deal with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this
I
is
know.
a series that we love the host, and we're gonna have another host come on shortly, or a guest slash host, future host maybe, come on shortly, where we talk to each other, right? In our last episode, we interviewed some people, really good episode. Our Mid Hudson partners are further north, but not too far from us, and it was a therapeutic conversation. Even prior to that conversation, Ronnie and I were talking about, well, I shared with Ronnie about myself and how the world around me is evolving and how things are changing. And I talked about how I age the older I get. I've been more focused on the mind, the body, and the soul. Because when you're young, right, you play some basketball, you go to the gym, you recover right away, right? You just recover. It just happens. It's just a thing. But when you get older, you got to be very, very mindful of those things, right? And how the body affects your mind, right? And how it affects your soul and how you experience the world. And that's where I am in my life right now is the experience of life. And I mean, I've always been an experience of life, but more intentional on what that looks like. And I've been on this journey for a few years where I've been talking about boundaries and balance and so forth. And I'm going to do a lot of talking, but I want to let Ronnie to jump in, have Ronnie jump in because I see Ronnie wants to share. I want to make sure that I don't dominate the conversation today.
No, I wasn't going to leave my audio on because I'm at home and there's
Got it.
background noise. But hey, that's okay. That's what we're about.
Got it.
That's what so real about our podcast is that we're in our own environments. You'll hear the background noises. You'll hear the
Hmm.
sirens. You'll hear the dogs barking. These are, this is what makes us who we are. Yeah, when you were saying that, I was saying about my own journey through that. And my journey through the years and in 1989.
Good
I
year.
think it's
Good
when I
year.
really started. It,
I just wanted to
good
say
year.
that.
Well, it was when 89 was the year I got started in prevention. And
Good
it was
year.
when I
See.
started my own journey of really trying to figure out who the hell am I, and
Mm,
where am I going and what am I doing? It was a good 8 years prior to getting into recovery, but my journey started 8 years before, down
mm,
taking paths to
mm,
eventually lead me to that recovery. But there was a whole lot of stuff that happened beforehand. And in 89, I was without a job for like 4 or 5 months.
oh wow.
And I did a lot of soul searching. And I remember I wrote a novel.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, I, what can I say? I needed to write. And I just started to find myself. And that was it. It took a long time for me to even get to the point of where I could, but I remember that's what started the journey. And just so much because I started to realize, yeah, there's a lot more than, like you said, you go out, you play sports, you work out. And that's just really, I think, an example. It's not really,
Yeah,
I think you're
yeah.
giving an analogy more than anything else, but used to talk about the good pain, and yeah, I did a legs workout and I could barely walk. It was great. Now I'm like, I've got arthritis. I can barely walk. It's not great, you know. But what's inside? People always say, "Gee, I wish I could go back to being, a certain age." Not me. I wasn't happy then.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't. I wouldn't want to go back to that. I wouldn't want to go back to the age I was. Even in early recovery, it was wonderful, but I was going through so much stuff. So, even though I'm older and I have a lot of aches and pains, the soul and the mind, are much more developed now. You know, it's I guess as our bodies get weaker, sometimes our souls and our minds get stronger, and they kind of
Absolutely.
compensate. The balance
Absolutely.
shifts. Yeah. So that's what I
Especially
was thinking about.
when you're younger, you focus more, you rely rather more on your body to get you to do things, right? You don't think about the mind aspect unless there's some sort of a traumatic situation that happens, right? Whether it's a breakup, a loss in the family, uh you failed the exam, you know, like like but then you get through those things, right? And then to your point, you look back at, that breakup, that failed exam, what could I have done differently? Right? Like how could I have addressed the traumatic situation differently? And for me, being a parent, and I've shared this a lot, I look back at the things that I've done or if I've experienced or people around me have experienced or shared with me, and it kind of helped me develop my parenting skills or my parenting style. And I've shared this multiple times. And I actually shared I'm a part of a men's group, a dad's group rather, or both. And we talk, and I'm very keen on particular on vocabulary, right, and how I address the people around me, and especially with my children. And I told the gentleman that I meet with that I was very particular with how I call. I noticed it was something I noticed in my son. This is a notice in my son where he didn't have the confidence in himself. And I'm like, and it was in regards to basketball. He played every sport, but in basketball in particular, because that's the sport he kind of like gravitated towards. Uh, and I would tell him like, you're pretty good, and I would say, your dad. If you weren't good, I would tell you you weren't good. So I dubbed him. I gave him a nickname to help build his confidence. I called him Champ. And it was like that was more of a confidence builder thing for me, for him, where and I when I wanted to build his mind, right? I wanted to have him learn that you have the skill set and there's someone that believes in you, and I'm going to give you a title of you are a champion, you are a winner, and this is why. This is what I see in you. Same thing with my daughter. I call her baby lady. She's an adult, but I still call her baby lady. I mean, since she was a baby, she was a lady. She was steadfast in who she was and how she dressed and how she carried herself. So I'm like, this is a baby lady. And like to this day, that is her nickname. I just got off the phone with her a few minutes ago, and like she'll tell you that's what I call her. Her mom calls her lady, but I call her baby lady. She will always be my baby lady, forever and ever, and like he will always be my champ. And and I say that because like that mind part is so important, in vocabulary and the words that you use, and I talk to and it helps build with the soul, you know. It helps, and and again the reason why I brought this up because I speak with these gentlemen and I will never tell someone how to raise their child, but I am a young person forward. I am like, hey, can't do that. I have this one gentleman, said he called his son, his son is a nerd. I'm like, what does that even mean? And I'm like, and he explained, I'm like, that's not a good analogy, and then you wonder why your son doesn't speak to you. You wonder why your son doesn't treat you the way you want to be treated. You are insulting him. Although nerd is not a bad term. It's not a bad term. I'm a nerd. I'm cool with it. But that's something I learned to like, you know what, that's a part of who I am. But how some of us use it is very negative. It's very, you aren't athletic. I mean, I played sports. I've done the rapping thing. I was an MC. I did graffiti, but I was good in school. But that's what he knew me for. It's like, hey, this guy got good grades, and that's why, I push for the young people because I didn't have that person push for me to say, hey, Chevar, you're still great. My mom did that, but not to the extent or level that I would have liked it, because she was very caring and empathetic and passionate, and when I wanted something because she knew I was into music, so I always had instruments around me. But no one ever taught me how to play the instruments. I didn't get a class, and I think that's the place where I wish I had more. When my son, wanted a guitar, and my daughter, I'm like, okay, let's learn together, or let's find you a music instructor so they can teach you, because that's something that I felt that I was missing. I was given the tools, but I didn't have the discipline on how to. I just beat the hell out of, excuse my language, beat the hell out of those drums. And it
How
was
bad.
no music coming out of it. It would just be beating the hell out of the drums.
Well,
Yeah.
but we all have our different reasons, different ways of expressing what's inside of us.
Mhm.
Now, I knew I wanted to play the guitar from the time I was 4 years old.
Mm,
Um, I grew up in the 50s to start at least, and we'd watch Elvis on TV. My mother was in her early 30s. She was dancing around the living room. She really loved Elvis, and she loved rock and roll.
mm,
And I went from 4 years old, I told her I'm going to play guitar. And I had like a kid's guitar. And when I was like 7, she bought me a guitar.
mm,
And she enrolled me in like a community. We used to have Saturday school, they called it,
mm,
at the local school. And Saturday school was like all kinds of fun stuff that kids could do and attend. And I attended a guitar class.
mm.
And I take my little guitar and they taught me all the chords. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. And I had so much confidence. And then she took me to a private instructor because when you said that, it made me think about how our early experiences can really influence us. And I was only 8, and he told me to forget everything I ever learned. You don't really know how to play guitar.
Oh wow.
And I started out feeling defeated. And my mother wasn't, at the time, I wasn't expressing to her what was going on. And yep, I know what you're thinking. Um,
Yes.
you know what? Let's let Kate in, and then I'll continue the story when we let her in. Why don't we do that?
Yes.
Because we have our guest, our teammate, and here's Kate. How
Hi,
you doing, Kate?
welcome. How are you guys?
We're doing okay. It's
We're
Friday,
doing good. We're doing good.
at
Yeah.
least when we're recording this.
TGIF.
Yeah, I was just sharing with Shavar just a story about mindset and how we were talking about our moms, and I was telling him how I learned to play guitar at 7 in a community center class, and then when I was 8, my mom sent me for private lessons, and the teacher basically told me to forget everything I ever learned, and not that I didn't really know how to play guitar, and he
Mhm.
was horrible. I mean, this man, he beat up my spirit. And I hadn't conveyed it to my mom at that time because I didn't know how to. And finally, what had happened was after like several months of it, he told me that my nails were too long and he grabbed my hand and he
Oh
cut
wow.
my nails with this big scissor. And I went home and I was so upset. My mother finally realized that I wasn't getting what I wanted out of it and what she wanted me to get. She went to see him and she said, "How could you do that?" My mother was my biggest champion. And he said, "Well, she doesn't
Likewise.
have any talent. You're wasting your money. She has no talent." And my mother refused to believe that, but she still shared what he said with me. I didn't play guitar for another 2.5, almost 3 years. And when we were moving several years later, I was in a room with boxes waiting for the movers and a guitar. My mother said, "Just you got to wait a few hours." And I sat with the guitar and a book and taught myself every chord in the book. And then and I think she knew that would happen because she instilled confidence in me. And we need that, like you did with your son,
Hmm.
Shavar.
Hmm.
And then right after that, she got me another guitar with like green stamps, and she found it. And after that, beyond for the next 40 years, my mother encouraged my music career. She just was there. She would come to see me. I'd play a song for her I wrote. She'd say, "Well, I don't like this part, but I like this part." And we'd write it together. And It just so I guess my point being that people can knock us down, but if we have somebody there who's going to believe in us and instill that confidence, it does change everything. It makes you a much more confident person, and it lets you know that no matter what, you're enough.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
So you know I'm gonna tie this to prevention, you know, because definitely. So Kate, you just joined us. We're leaning on the topic of mind, body, and soul, and how it affects your life, and how do you rather that not only how does it affect your life, how do you engage with it? Like, you
Mm.
know, and I talked about prior to you coming on, when I was younger, it was all about the body. I was young, played sports, you know, did all the activities, and then, you know, you get a little injury, you recoup, right? So it didn't really affect your brain or your body until you get older. You get injured, like, you know, I have tons of sports injuries all over my body, and when I got older, and then I'm like, I can't do the things I couldn't do anymore. So it kind of affected my mind and my soul. Oh my God, I felt defeated, you know. But and I was sharing around it, like these are things that I've learned, right? To how do I engage with my children? How do I engage with the family around me or the people around me? And when in positive reinforcement and positive attitudes, you know. And what I believe will happen with luckily with my children, that positive reinforcement, that positive engagement, those words of, hey, this is your nickname and this is why, and not just saying that you're smart or you're beautiful. Why are you smart? You're smart because you did these things, right? You're intelligent because you did these things. Build on vocabulary. Not just say the word smart. Give them a vocabulary. And I say, like, you know, back to prevention, that actually helped them, you know, help them deal with their stress, help them deal with the anxiety. Like, you know, I help them reset themselves where, you know, in their teenage years, my son's still a teenager, he didn't use because it was like, I have an outlet. You know, I go home with dad, we're gonna paint. I go home with dad. Dad designs clothes, so we're gonna sew some clothes, right? When I go home with dad, he's doing photography, so he's editing photos. I'm learning how. My kids both do photography now. Like these are things that they've learned based off of watching me. And like, and quick story, I used to design clothes. One day I'm sitting there and I look to the left of me, I see my daughter. She's cutting up fabric. I'm like, what are you? I'm like, just watching her, like, what is she doing? So she's designing a dress for, like, she's like 6 or 7 years old, designing a dress for her upcoming play. I'm like, I could have helped you with this. No, Dad, I want to do this on myself. Hence the term, hence the name Baby Lady. She was this little lady as a baby who wanted to do it on her own. She would watch, she mimic, and like that right there made me feel so proud that, you know, I'm doing something positive that they can that she at the time was just her, that she can take from. Like, you know, I thought you weren't watching. I thought you weren't. I thought you was, you know, like, okay, you're designing clothes now. You know, you are now they're photographers because of what they seen their dad do. You know, they are good artists. I would say that. Like that part they didn't get, but the rest of the stuff, you know, cooking and all that, they all got. I think having that positive role model for them, I used to think they hated me. You know, I swear to you, anyone who's a parent of a teenager, ignore it, ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. They will when the teenage years start to end, and they'll say, "Dad, you were great. It was just me being a teenager, and I just wanted to figure this out on my own." So, again, anyone who is a parent of a teenager, please ignore it. Don't get offended. You will cry, you will be upset, but trust me, trust me, trust me. They still love you, and they still think you are the greatest person in the world, and they will circle around. Both of my kids circle back and said, "Dad, you are amazing. I love you." Like my daughter would refuse to say I love you, but every time she speaks to me, she has to say she loves me. So I'm gonna stop talking because I did a lot of talking. So if anyone wants to chime in, I just wanted to share with you, Kate, what we were talking about, mind, body, and soul, and how you engage with it. If you want to share, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Chevar. I think so much of that was really wonderful. And yeah, as the teenage child of a parent or having been one in the past decade, I echo, you know, what you're saying. There's only appreciation, even though I know teenagers can really take it out of you. Yeah, when it comes to mind, body, and soul, I think, Ronnie, I was really relating to what you were saying when I joined in, about the impact of the environment you had when you were, exploring guitar and exploring music and sort of exploring skills and hobbies as a young person, and, an opportunity in learning and growth. And for me, I went to a school in New York that was very progressive. And so it lacked like grades and a lot of meaningful structure as part of its ethos. Like it was really um, founded on, students will learn because they want to learn and they'll, bring that energy and we try to, really take that energy and run with it. And unfortunately for me as a young person, I really did not do well with that lack of structure. And I can really see um, people who, it did work for. And I think that for basically K through 12, thought that I was the problem. And, I think there weren't meaningful, um, there weren't meaningful efforts, I think, to engage students who the system didn't necessarily work for. It was just sort of a reinforcement of, yeah, this isn't working for you. I don't know what's wrong. And then I got to college and I had a professor who really believed in me. And it changed everything for me. I mean, I really didn't even realize the sort of language that I was using in my own mind, about the type of student I thought I was, the type of learner I thought I was, my work ethic. And so having that transformation did just wonderful things to my confidence, as Ronnie was saying, having someone believe in me, having someone celebrate me, I think I really was missing that for many years, unfortunately. And I really took it to heart thinking that it was me, and a me problem. So I think that that's, when we think of the mind, we often, that there's different parts of the mind. So I think, the intellect really has an impact, or the intellect, the experience, your experiences have an impact on your confidence. The attitudes of others, your attitudes towards yourself, impact your decision making, impact who you choose to put yourself around. And then when it comes to the body, I mean, the body keeps the score. I think that's, the first thing I think of. I hope we don't get copyrighted. But yeah, I just think that, with the body, I think it's something that it just builds up over time. It's something that, the body can handle a little adversity here to there, but you're really going to see a toll over time. And I think, making sure that you're caring for yourself, little moments of respite, of course, are great, but it's all about balance because if you go too far in one direction, I think as Chevar was saying, the injuries stack up, right? And the long time of maybe not attending to hygiene because your mental health is down, that adds up. And then that becomes one of your concerns in your life now. So I think just noticing, the body is our vehicle, the body is the way we move through the world. So taking care of that vehicle as you would your vehicle, getting your oil changed and whatnot and attending to it. So yeah, I mean, this is a super relevant, I think, topic for me. I think these are very, intersecting domains that really characterize the human experience. So, yeah, way to go with this one.
Well, this is a topic that's extremely important to me. It's like, those who've been listening to the podcast for the past few years, I've talked about my journey. I've talked about, I think 2 years ago, I talked about learning to release, learning to release myself, learning to release people, learning to release habits, and it's not easy. And I'm speaking to everyone, people who are struggling, with the substance misuse, people who are struggling with the possibility of using, people who are struggling with mental illnesses or whatever the case may be, or people who are just questioning what's going on. It's not easy, and part of it is a journey, and what does that look like? For me, it was like taking inventory of who I am and what I have around me, right? Who are the people in my life? And the unfortunate part is that when that release happens, the things you love, you may have to release. The things you care the most deeply about. I have family members who are so important to me that I had to release because my mind was going where it wasn't supposed to be. My soul was dying. I felt my soul was dying. I felt I was losing sight of who I was and what I needed. So for anyone who's listening, that may happen. And it's okay, but it's like it's on you to figure out how you want to address that journey, and then I started to learn, like I shared, I think last not meeting, podcast, in the previous podcast, I had to learn about boundaries. And boundaries for myself, right? And how do I set boundaries for those who are around me who will affect my mind, who will affect my soul, right? My body's a little different because I can walk away from you. Because here's the thing, when you have the conversation with an individual, or you have an interaction, you walk away, right? But in your mind, you're still thinking about it, right? And how does it weigh on your soul? Because the body, you get up and walk. Like I said, you walk away, and that's something where I had to learn about, like, the boundaries, and also figuring out what balance looks like. Putting yourself first, something that happened to me a few years ago when I said it out loud. I'm going to start putting myself first, and people took it as an insult to them. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, you're not going to help me anymore? Never said that. Like, I never said that. I said I have to figure out how to support myself first before I help anyone else. If I can't be my best version of me, how am I helping each other? When I'm referring to the person I'm helping and the person that myself. Because I can help you, but then when I walk away, I'm like, I had to process what I just helped you with. Right? And without and then guess what? People who are listening, everyone is gonna help you the way you help them. And that also came with the boundaries that I had to learn about. Right. And again, I still help people tremendously to this day, but it has to be on my terms. Has to be when I'm ready, right? Depending on the situation, is really dire and detrimental. Yes, I'll step in and put everything aside to support whomever it is and support the situation. But I also go in with whomever I'm talking to or whatever the situation is. What do you want from me, and what do you want out of my support? What kind of support do you need? So I know how, again, and that helps in my balance. That helps in my boundaries. Like, you need this, you need something very specific. And what is it? What is it that you need, and how I can support you? And I think that has helped me. That is the it helped me a lot, because now I get to focus on me, in which I realized, like, through this journey, I need a lot of help. It's like, and I'm speaking because for anyone who's listening, where that you're not the only person that needs that, who is the strong person. And I said this in previous podcast episodes. Reach out to that strong individual. They might not tell you, but they're struggling also. They're putting up this wall. I don't want to say facade. I don't want to say fakeness. They're putting up a wall to make sure that if they have confidence, you have confidence. If they're strong, you're strong. But sometimes that person who's the strong person needs someone to be strong for them. And even, like, and I shared this with Ronnie. I shared this in the last episode, I believe, also, where just that simple phone call helps a person's soul, right? Like, I shared, I had a friend who I just happened to get the phone just to call and check in on, and that helped him. Because I know, I have an idea what he's going through, and again, like I said before, that's his story to share. But the question was, is how are you? And he said that made his week. That uplifted his soul, right? It pushed whatever it was in his mind to the side. Like, someone does care about me. Someone does want me to succeed. And like I said before, he went to his coworkers, and he said to his coworkers, the homie called me just to say how I was doing, and I'm smiling today just because of a phone call, you know. And I can go even deeper. I ran after school program for years, and I shared this in the podcast before. I had a student who we dealt in our program. We dealt with tragedy that year. The person, the site director at the time, he passed away in a car accident, car crash, right? And it was tough. It was really hard on me, hard on my staff. You know, and I was trying to figure it out, and I was avoiding situations. I will admit it. I was avoiding situations, and so one day I was like that's not me. Go down to the gym, and I saw not the gym, the lunchroom, and I didn't like what was going on. But instead of me exploding, so you know what? How would the Chevar handle this? Did what I did. There was a young lady sitting in the back of the lunchroom, sitting by herself. No one's addressing the kids running around, staff doing whatever they were doing. So instead of, yelling or because I was frustrated, I was angry. My close friend passed away, and I'm like, you gotta say you love this person, then you should be doing what you need to do. But guess what? I wasn't doing what I needed to do. So what I did was I went to the back of the lunchroom and I sat down with the young lady. I know her name. Her name is I'm gonna share. Her name is Leilani. And I sat down with her. I said, simplest question. Because I saw her sitting back in the back of the lunchroom. I said, how was your day? And she was confused. She said, no one, she was 11 years old. She said, no one has ever asked me how was my day. I didn't ask her what was wrong with her. I didn't ask why she was sitting back here by herself. I just said, how was your day? And and to hear someone, and again, that kind of affected my parenting style. To hear someone say at 11 years old, no one has ever asked me how was my day at 11 years old. You know what? I went home. I would ask my daughter how was her day. Every day, I would ask her how was her day. But anyway, she told me her day, and she ended up telling me what was going on. And I use that as a teachable moment for my staff. I said, granted, sometimes you want to leave people alone. The only way to find out if a person wants to be left alone is if you go talk to them. Because she could have said, hey, I'm okay, I just want to be left alone. But she was struck by, how was my day? It was like, yeah, simple question. And like I said, she shared what was going on. And I remember that school year, every morning she would walk by my office just to say hello. Because I asked her for the entire until June. Until, even in the following year she did come by, but not as much. But she remembered someone asked her how was her day. And and I see that she's an adult now. She's a chef, what have you, and I do reach out to her every now and again just to ask her how was her day, you know, and I sat with her and I sat with me, and it helped me become a better person. Like that was a teachable moment, and I sat down with the staff and I told the staff that story. And I told people that story, like just that small check in. Like it's that small check-in. It helps the mind. It helps the soul. It helps you. Because like I said, it helped me say, uh-oh, am I asking my daughter how was her day? Like, wait a minute, am I being, I learned from that. But yeah, that's a long story.
Well, you said a lot there, a lot of stuff,
I'm
that I
sorry.
related to, because you know what? No, no, but a lot of stuff I related to, and I'm thinking as I'm sitting here looking at the screen, we represent three separate generations, and that's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah.
And I think back, I've been doing a lot of thinking over. I've been doing it probably for years, but lately just thinking about the things that are important to me. You talked about letting go. You talked about boundaries. You talked about balance. All topics that are daily for me to think about. But you talked about checking in on your strong friends. And my whole life I've been kind of the rock for my friends. And when I got into recovery, I realized I had to start reaching out to people. And that was the hardest thing in the world for me to do because I was always the one who reached out to everybody else or took care of everybody else. But when I needed help, I needed to reach out to them and ask for help. And I couldn't do it. I just had so much trouble. And that leads when you're in a 12-step fellowship, that leads to really asking your higher power for help and the people in your group. And my sponsor at the time, Robin, who is still a friend of mine, and she's the one who taught me everything I needed to know in that first year together. And I remember I think I've told the story before too, because I was having so much trouble reaching out and I had to take care of it all myself because that's who I was and who sometimes I am, but not as much so much. anymore. She said, when you're in the grocery store, I want you to go and ask where the breadcrumbs are. I said, yeah, but I know where the breadcrumbs are. She said, I don't care. I want you to go up to the desk and ask where they are. I said, but I don't need that. She said, yes, you do. I said, okay. She said, I'll go ask and then I'll go there. She said, no, no, you're going to ask them to show you. I said, come on, you feel like an idiot. I mean, that's all the time. Aisle three, I'm in front of aisle three. You know, you need to go and ask them to show you. So, because I was desperate to really change and find some peace in my life, I listened. And I went to the store. I said, where are the breadcrumbs? They said, aisle three. Well, wherever. I was standing in front of aisle three. I said, well, where exactly? Down that aisle. Okay, but where? Down the aisle. Just walk down aisle three and look up. No, I need you to show me. No, you don't. Well, I hung in there till that person showed me. I said, please show me. Please take me there. And they did. And I came back. And of course, I felt all embarrassed and everything because I had a lot more ego then. And when I went back and told her, she said, great, now do that all the time. To this day, if I'm in a store 28 years later and I ask where something is and I don't ask them to show me, or at least be real specific that I need more information, I feel guilty. I'm like, no, Robin would want me to do this. So it's hard to undo that when you've always been I was the friend director, everybody, and it was so much, it was offensive that I didn't trust my friends to actually do the right thing, like on my 40th birthday, until finally they got insulted and said, did you really think we were going to forget your 40th birthday? Step back. And that was a big lesson for me. So sometimes it really is hard to ask for help if you're the strong one, but sometimes I have to let them know, you got to call them. I need to hear from you sometimes. I've learned to do that and say, when you called me the other day, it really helped me. I need that. I need more of that. So sometimes through our lives, we don't realize, and yes, that enriches our soul. But I just want to go back to the whole balance thing too. And so much of this I learned in recovery, and I learn as I go along. I'm still in recovery. Is that balance for me is not the good and the bad, the scales. And you've heard me say this in a lot of our trainings, it's enriching the soul, the core, what's within, and everything else falls into place, like the 8 dimensions of wellness that we look at in the SAFs. And that's, a lot of what we teach, that people need to have all those things that are important in their lives in a way that allows their core to really function and everything else in life to move forward. And in a way that's positive for your mind, your body, and your soul. So when you were talking, that's all the stuff that started going through my mind. All right.
Sometimes, and I learned this from Irene, from from one of the community, the director from Finger Lakes, yes. And to this strong point, the strong person thing, my grandmother passed away a few years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, going on 3 years. And I didn't realize that I was just doing things, helping people. Like I remember, like my grandmother passed, and then I'm checking on everyone. And one time I was in a shower, 3 hours passed. I was in the shower. Didn't realize I was in the shower for 3 hours. Did not realize that I was sending text messages, checking in people until I looked at my phone and then didn't realize I wrote any of this. Any of it. And I'm like, what? And like, I get a text. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it wasn't it was like everybody saying thank you. Oh my God. I'm like, what are they talking about? What are you thanking me for? Like, what do you, what, and then with the term that I learned, that I was on autopilot, right? I didn't realize I was like just doing, just doing. And then I remember back to the release part or the boundaries part, I actually said in my family's group chat, even now, I picked up the phone. I said, no one checks up on me. I check up on everyone. I have every single family member's phone number. Something I learned from my mom. I check in on everyone, but no one was checking on me. And I told people, no one's checking on me. And that was intentional to see if who was going to check in on me. You know, and some people did or did it in their own way. Where I had a cousin where, again, he butt dialed me, then I called him back, and he was like, And I was like, oh, you don't gotta talk. He's like, no, we don't speak. I need to speak to you. I need to hear your voice. And that was
Yeah,
his
but
way
you
of
trained them that way. You trained them that way. So when we train people, they treat us like we train them,
right. No,
you know?
it was something like, again, like I said, I didn't realize that was going on, and and from that, like I said, I was already on the journey, but it actually helped me push the journey even further.
But that's
Mm.
huge.
Yeah,
So do
it
they
was
call you now?
no. But
All right.
I realized that uh without me there's no connection, and I'm okay with that. I had to learn to be okay with that. I had to learn to be, because I'm always family, family, family. I'm like, what happens if I'm not here? You guys will never talk. You guys will never talk to each other. So I was like, so I had to learn to be like, all right, they don't talk. Like, like they didn't show up to an event. I told them,
Yeah.
like I don't get, actually never got mad about it. I would just say, this is your information, whether you show up or not. I'm always here, but like every cousin, every aunt and uncle will tell you that I am always checking in. I'm always so if I call like dude, like don't be mad at you. Like, no, no, we're gonna talk. So if I do reach out, they're gonna sit on the phone and talk to me. Or let's say let's go hang out because that's who I am. Anyone else calls, they probably won't answer. They probably won't hang out. They
Yeah,
probably won't give
Chevar.
them yeah. Yeah. But yeah, yeah, again
Cool.
and then so sometimes we are on autopilot and we don't know.
Mhm.
And I learned that I was just doing, just doing, and I think that leads into to back to prevention. Like sometimes we are just participating in the habits and not realizing why. And how do we navigate from those habits or navigate through those habits? And how do we learn for ourselves? Like I said, everything I've done, I've learned and I applied it. Now, you struggled, whatever you're going through. How do you teach the next generation or the person next to you, how to navigate away from these situations? Like I had friends who would tell me, dude, we did the same things as teenagers. How did you end up here? And like I ended up in jail. I'm like, well, it was a choice. And they're saying it to, and they praise me. My friends praise me. They tell me thank you. Like for showing them that everyone doesn't have to go down the same path. Yeah, mind, body, and soul. Kate, I know Kate's like, what is going on here?
No, not at all. I think while you were talking about, being an autopilot, thinking about mind, body, and soul, I was thinking the body can be also a great tool to get you out of that and to, use the body can be a tool for grounding and, like going outside and getting sunlight or like putting your feet actually against the ground, music, senses, like, engaging with your body in that way and sort of resetting, I do think can be a really valuable way to sort of bypass, when you're dissociated, in those moments of grief or, whatever else you might be struggling with. I think that's something that's always worked for me. And that definitely resonates with the mind body connection. So just wanted to bring that up as well.
I mean, and it really does show us how stress can play such an important role in our lives and how it can affect all of those areas, your mind, your body, your soul. I mean, it's amazing, you know, my knees are, you both know that I have a lot of trouble with my knees now that they're bone on bone, they're shot. And I have arthritis. And on days when I'm more stressed, I don't feel as good. And I just can't get my clarity. But when I can do something to relieve the stress, it's amazing how much better I feel. But a lot of times too, I forget to notice. And one thing, that's always been important for me is sit down. And again, I learned this in early recovery. It's just, I guess I keep living the recovery life. I got to remind myself those first years of recovery taught me everything I needed to know really about life. I said sometimes I'll have a stressful part of a day, and I think my day was really bad, or I have, a bad moment. But if I think about my day later in the day, I realize it's just that one moment. It didn't define my day. to find that moment. And I have to remember to do that to, not, and we do that a lot. I think it's people, we do that a lot. We get into a rut and we get to a mindset and we start to feel a certain way. We forget to look for the light. And it gets lost in all the darkness around, especially, look, that's where we're at. I mean, I'm not, without saying anything beyond that, it's just that's the world we're in right now. There's a lot of darkness. But that darkness, when we think about it, is that the predominant energy or are we letting it be? And that's something I have to make peace within myself and remind myself to do that. I can't change other people, but I can certainly be open to what changes me. So it's just, and again, when you think about it, what we're talking about really is a lot about prevention. All roads really do lead to prevention, because these are things that are healthy for the mind, the body, and the soul. And if those are all thriving, we tend not to use substances that hurt us. So just a lot of thoughts coming out of all this.
So when we opened the episode, Kate, you'll hear this and see this later. We were laughing. And laughter does help with the mind, body, and soul, right? It's so important to laugh. Laugh at yourself, people. Please go look in the mirror. Laugh at yourself. It's okay. Like, listen, I laugh at some of the weirdest things. Don't question me. And I think that's important, just to laugh and giggle and have fun. And to Riley's point about that one moment doesn't define who you are that day, right? So look back at it and laugh at it. It's probably funny. Like, well, I was mad about that. Really? It was that bad. It wasn't, in the moment it was. But later on, it wasn't that big of a deal. So laugh at it. Have fun, man. Like, definitely laugh. Like, what brings me joy? Can I ask it? So I want everybody to think about it. So before we close out, what brings you joy when in the moment of stress, in the moment of angst, in the moment of what brings you joy? Take a moment to think about that. How do you say, you know what? Ah, what's that point to say, you know what? Some people can't do it, and that's okay. But what if it's not stress, but in life in general, what brings you joy? What makes you laugh? Right? I can tell you, when I do go on the social media, I said it like the old guy, the social media, the TikTok, watch the reels, baby videos make me laugh. Anybody who ever seen, like, if I do repost, they are the funniest things in the world. Where the babies or little kid videos. There's a series of videos I reposted where it's a he's like probably 10, 11-year-old. He's like repeating what parents say. This is your house. And he's like saying it really aggressively, but it's like a joke. He's like, "This is your house, so why should I clean it? If this is your house, why should I throw out the garbage? If this is your house," and I think it's funny. So like those things, like kids bringing me joy, the little kids videos where they call their parents funny names. That's what brings me joy. So when I'm down, I jump on the social media and I look for the kid videos because they make me laugh. That's me.
I love the social media, the TikTok.
The TikTok.
That just made me laugh.
Their proper names.
The TikTok, the reels. You guys have anything that brings you joy, or it could be cats, it could be your dog, it could be whatever, it could be painting. What makes you laugh? What makes you smile?
Yeah, I mean, I just love, connecting with friends and like really, finding humor there. I think me and my friends are really funny. We probably think we're much funnier than we are. But there's nothing like, sort of a good bit or a good riff between friends. I think that brings me a lot of joy. And then I also love a little bit of reality TV. I think it really contextualizes things for me. It's some good perspective on the, sort of vast diversity of personality types and perspectives. And yeah, I think it just brings me a little bit of light and humor. So,
Well, I mean, I seek joy in every moment. A lot of times I get into places where I'm not there, and then I try to step out of myself because that's when I stay within myself and I'm mired in self-pity or in negativity and the things that are totally out of my control. I lose sight of that, and I try to find, like, I had a chocolate chip cookie earlier that was amazing. That was like joy. That was so joyful. But if I really need a joy boost, I take my sweet Hannah outside, my dog. It's impossible to not feel joyful in her presence. She is, I call her my joy. That's what when I'll post a video of her, I say, here, I'm sharing some Hannah joy. Hannah squeaking a ball in my face, Hannah running. It doesn't matter. She's just, I feel like she was sent to us to bring us joy. She was not, we didn't think so at first. We thought we had I thought I found my payback kid. She was so insane. But what she's turned into with the investment of love, that brings me joy, constant joy. So if it's a rough day, I definitely take Hannah outside and we just have a good time together. But I guess, as we're talking about this and we're wrapping it up, she's barking in the background, of course. The messages here are that, not to get mired in one moment or one piece of the picture, to look at the whole picture and find those things that really can bring you joy, even if they're minute. If we don't light something, we don't see the light at all. So that's where I'm at right now.
I want to steal something you said. The investment of love. I thought that was amazing, especially with Kate with the friends group. I was with my friends the other day, and to your point, we are hilarious and inappropriate. If that's what you were talking about, Kate, we are also inappropriate. And it is okay because it's all dealt with love, and I think that's the most important part of to what Ronnie's saying. And I love the investment of love, like in find love in the little things. A cookie. A reel of a kid falling off a chair. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Friends group, find that love because love doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing. Love can be that small thing. I'm actually gonna get some cookies when you said that. I'm gonna go to Chip City. That's a whole other story. But anyway, Ronnie, we out here.
I think we are. And I guess this is our last podcast probably of 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just moving ahead. Next time we see everybody, it'll be a new year. And I mean, I don't put a lot of investment in the actual new year, but it'll be a new day. It'll be a new moment. And Chevar, why don't you just take us out of here? And Kate, we want you to join us more often on this podcast. We're a team. And it's really fun to be able to convey that as a team.
Yeah, I love being here.
Right.
Thank you guys for having me again.
So
Cool.
for those who are listening, those who are watching, this is the solution. Nothing changes, you change nothing.